So I sometimes have used this as a pointing stick. Yeah, very good. So that might happen. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about projects, and part of this will be sort of showing you some exhibits that are up there that are inspirations. We do have a project starting on this. So ratioing, the verb to ratio, people know this verb, to get ratioed, right? So it's sort of got emerged as a thing that can happen to you if you're online, and it's whether the balance of, and here it is. So this is a part of what I'm showing you here is a great sort of data visualization thing. It's a bit like the followers thing I showed you the other day from the New York Times, that very clearly, powerfully showed you which accounts were bots and who were sort of doing bad things. So this is for Trump. This is 538. There are a few more below, but this is just for Trump, and this is only up to like a year ago, right? So it's missing a lot of rich material that's happened in the last year, but this is well done, right? So this is just simply the balance of, so a tweet from Trump, this is the number of retweets, number of replies, and likes, and it's the balance of those things, right? So this is a nice way of being able to plot a three-dimensional thing such that everything adds up to 1. You can have an axis like this as a third, for example. Anyway, so if you're out here, it's relatively all likes, people just favor it, or so much that it overwhelmed the retweets and replies. And replies are here. So this has been a bit of a funny thing. Twitter has added this. You can easily see it, usually on the kind of the main version of the tweet, but when you dig in, it sort of disappears. So this is a bit of a hard thing to get out, but we've got a student who's been working on this. And part of this, I'm showing you a great visualization. And then retweets up the top, right, which have been around for a long time. But this is sort of a latest piece of information that's added. So this is a little triple of numbers, simple numbers, right? This, this is when he, this was his most, at this point, controversial tweet in terms of response on Twitter. So 88,000 to 78,000, and 20,000 retweets this way. And that put it above, across this line. So there's normalization for each person based on how they're followed. This is kind of, so this is the space he sort of lives in with his tweets, right? And you can play around. These are the ones that were most replied to. You can do a search, right? So Hillary, for example, right? That should work, I think. Yeah. No? Oh, yeah. Let's get that back. Right, so there are those ones, and just how there's Ted, his friend Ted. Okay, so this is a nice, and then you can, so it talks about it. Here's Obama versus Trump, right, again at that time. So Obama gets more out into this, on this retweet axis, which is the, if you're up here, this is something you want to spread it, but you don't like it. And it's Twitter, the way Twitter works is people tend to like very easily. It's just sitting there. It's easy to go do both of these things, but they should almost be separate options. Anyway, so more up here doesn't really come far into this corner. So we did have a project in PoCS and Coconuts last year that looked at what the replies are like, and if you have a lot of replies, they are generally kind of negative, right? So there is a sense that this is this kind of, observation that we could make that being over in this corner, being ratioed, right? That's being ratioed is generally bad. And so there are some spectacular. I think that there's an account that that retweets fantastically ratioed tweets. It's like a curation of where things have gone horribly wrong. This is for senators. Again, this is dated back to a year ago. So red for Republican and blue for. So obviously they have different audiences and so on, but really different character in terms of what's happening. So there are some stuff out here where this is just being truly lit up, right? Like this is no one is engaging on this side, and they're just having a go at you. Generally speaking, right? And a lot of you might think like Lady Gaga or something. A lot of people do reply. Like you'll see a ton of replies if you go to one of their tweets, but there's just a bazillion favorites that overwhelm that. So, and we had students look at things like this. Anyway, so here's that's. Elizabeth Warren is more on this. She's pretty spread out on this axis, right? So that's a lot of like retweeting, which is this is a meaningful, important thing that people want to presumably send on. This is Bernie here, actually. This one, yeah. And so this is Bill Cassidy, Lindsey Graham. Really, just so gets a lot of action, but it's really over here, right? So it's strong. Bernie's the big one here in terms of this is interactions, right? Number of interactions. This is their average location in this ratio space. So you can build a ratiometer, right? And that's something we're kind of adding to our potosometer piece. So that's an inspiration if you're interested in playing around with that, and there's all sorts of dimensions to look at there. That's a possibility. All right, so that was one I was going to show you.